Hello and welcome to yet another video of this SVA Design YouTube channel. My name is Veldboom, and right now I am rendering one of the, not the last picture, but a later stage picture of the actual car. So the car is basically a front engine V12 car that is designed to look sort of like a modern version, not sort of like a modern version, should be a modern version of a Bizzarrini 3400gt Strada, one of the two. So this car, I should call it basically the Bizzarrini 3400gt Strada, because this is a 3.4 liter. That was a 5.3 liter V8. And the weird thing with this Bizzarrini is that even though it's an Italian built car, it had actually an American engine, a V8, a 5.3 liter, hence the name 5300 GT. And in my case, I started building a V12 car, and then I wanted to make an Italian car. And then later on, when doing some research on the Bizzarrini, actually not before I started working on the car, but yeah, I was thinking about that the Bizzarrini actually had a V8 instead of a V12. But I wanted to make it an Italian GT car, and nowadays a big Italian GT cars, hence the Ferrari 812, have big V12s in it. So that was kind of the, how you say that? I don't know, just that was basically what I was shooting for. So as this process is going on of the rendering, I thought I was taking a little bit of the time to also explain a little bit of everything that I'm doing for myself right now. I have been designing clothing a little bit in Photoshop for just myself, and making things that I would like to wear, making things that I think would look cool. And I am in the process right now of getting my first sample. I already got in a couple of samples for some other designs that I made, but now I really want to pull the trigger on getting a loading of clothing, getting a load of clothing in from China this time. And those will be flannel shirts. So this is not the sampler, this is just a regular flannel that I already bought. But this is like this type of material. So it should be like this, but then with a different type of print on it, with some different colors on it. And that is something that is coming. So be sure to look out for that. And those will be able to be purchased on the website. The website is not live yet, but I made the final step to get it completed to not really have the website done again, but I was blocked and I did some dumb stuff, deleting some files that I should not have deleted, and all those have been restored. So now I can work on the website again, but I do have to start from scratch. So that will take another week, but the website is coming. So these 2 weeks that I had off to kind of contemplate and to kind of focus on the things that I've been doing have been worth it, because yeah, tomorrow I will start at work again, and everything that I've done is just getting the 3D printer working. It doesn't work, but I've got through some steps of progressing it a little bit. The next thing was the website, so that will be up next week. It took a little bit longer, unfortunately, than I wanted to, but it will be there. And then also the clothing that will be coming, but it will take maybe a month and a half or so from the day that from today, before I actually have 100 of them in. So it will take some time, because also the sample will take like 2 weeks to get here from China and everything. So I have to be patient a little bit with that one, but that is going good. Also, I will probably receive a message one of these days to actually get to start working again. Oh, the render is on. To start working again on the electric bike that I'm working on, and just those are basically the things that are happening for me right now. So I'm gonna just start recording, so you guys can kind of see what I've been working on and how it is looking and everything. And then I will give you a rundown through the car of everything that is done with the body panels, everything that I will be doing in the next couple of days, and also the race version that is coming up as well. So this will be called the 3400 GT Strada, and then I would probably also make a 3400 GT GTR, and then make it like Corsa or something, so something Italian like that. So that is just basically what the plans are. So I wanted to make a race version, but even though it is Corsa, it will be like a road legal car. So this is the back side of the car, fully rendered and everything, so that is kind of cool that you can see it immediately how it will look. And also another thing is that this rear end probably looks a little bit familiar. I took a lot of inspiration from the 812 Superfast, so this is a little bit similar to the actual car that I'm working on. So you can kind of see the similarities in it. And this also reminds me that I still have to do the exhaust box also for the car. So I will integrate those into the diffuser so that they have a little bit of the profit of the low drag, not the low drag, the low air current, that is low air pressure zone that is being created under the diffuser. And this low air pressure zone also helps with evacuating all the gases that are in the exhaust system a little bit quicker. So this will get a little bit of a free flower exhaust at higher speed. This in combination with a ram air effect with the air intakes that are up front will make for the car that it is, when it is in high moving air, so when it is at speed, that it produces a little bit more top end horsepower than in a regular situation when it's just standing still. So that is also beneficial for a car of this type. So yeah, I'm gonna just get out of the render right now, and I just wanted to show you guys a little bit more on everything that is in the design right now. So first of all, maybe the silhouette is just a good place to start. You can kind of see that the function of the car is really, it's very bare minimum, I would say. So there aren't really a lot of holes poking out or anything for air to flow through, things of that nature. It is a very basic design right now, and there are only body panels to cover things that are there. So you can see that the hood right here, there is the line of the hood, so that is the maximum size of where the engine will sit. And then you can see like the fender popping out here. This is a pretty unusual shape for cars these days, because usually the hood is a little bit higher and you don't really see a fender protruding out of the body shape when you look at the silhouette. So I thought that was very cool to see. So there is also everything else that doesn't need to be there has been left out. So that is why you can kind of see that the hood is not as high as it is usually, and also at the same time that everything is just lower and everything is just very minimum shrink wrapped around the shape of the overall components that are on the inside of the car. So first point, that was it. And the second thing that I wanted to show was just to start at the front end, and this is also the major thing to distinguish it as a Bizzarrini design, and those are these nostril air intakes on the front. So let's also see if I can pull up a picture of a Bizzarrini real quick just to showcase what I mean. So you can see it clearly that there are two air intakes right here, and then underneath the light line, I always call it, I don't know what it is, but the separation between the actual hood of a car and then the bumper, you can see that there's an air intake underneath that, and then there are air intakes underneath the headlights, and there's a scoop or a ram air scoop right here to kind of work as a splitter a little bit. But back in those days they didn't really know a lot about aerodynamics, so that was also added to the car. So the next thing that you can see in this picture are the two the air outlets from the bottom of the hood, and also there's a bulge right here in the hood. So I tried to make a modern version of that by kind of incorporating all the three elements into one. So here you have the two nasal air intakes, I keep calling them, and then here you have the two air outlets, and these outlets will actually be for the radiator instead of the air coming in here, and the air that will be coming in here will actually go into the air intake for the actual engine. So that will be the air that will be burned, that will also then go into the engine. But then the air outlets are also basically modeled to be in the same shape as the bulge that is in the hood, because then the air that is exiting here kind of creates a boundary layer over the bulge, and it won't really be directly hit by the air flowing over the hood. And the air flowing over the hood, if that would directly hit the bulge, it would create a little bit of a high air pressure zone on the hood, which create more drag, also a little bit more downforce, but it's not very necessary to create a little bit more downforce on the hood if you have a great big front spoiler, not a wing, sorry, not a splitter, but it is actually a wing on the front of the car. A splitter is basically a plate that extends from the floor, and it will create an underwash of the airflow to go underneath the car that accelerates the air, and that accelerating of air creates a low pressure zone that will stick the car to the road. But what this rear wing does is it is basically in free air, and it is kicking air basically up into the radiator and also underneath the vehicle. And then you can see that underneath the rear wing there is an actual splitter here. So I will make it a little bit more of a different shape so that it's actually following the contours of the wing. So at this point will be a little bit more towards the front, but not too much, because you want the rear surface, the lower surface of the wing to actually be a little bit more functional than the upside of the wing. So this will have an actual splitter and a front wing to the car. So a lot of front air downforce. I believe I CFD tested just the rear wing by itself in free air without having any of the stuff around it, and it was producing more than 200 kilograms of downforce by itself. So I don't know how it will work in combination with the splitter. I still have to test it. If it doesn't work, I'll take the splitter off and I will be just satisfied with the 200 kilograms of downforce in the front end. So yeah, then the air will kind of go off of the sides here, everything that doesn't go into the radiator, and these small wing end plates create a small vortice that will go over the side of the tire to kind of create a boundary layer between all of the turbulent air coming off the rotating tire and the air that is flowing outside it. And then I will probably also do something similar on the back side of the tire here to make some small of extension. Maybe I don't even do it for this car. Maybe I'll keep ideas like that for the sport version of the vehicle. So that is another thing. Also, to go back to the hood, here you can see the very sneaky air outlet that is coming out of the underside of the hood. And I'm also thinking about maybe ducting the radiator directly also to a port here, because it is a very large air intake that you can see here, and I think it is a little bit too much air to have exiting in just these two pods. So I'm guessing it will be separated in between. I'm guessing. I have to make the thing, so I'm not guessing. But I probably should divide it into making a section here that entering here, and also a section that is exiting here. And then also from the back side of the hood, this bulge is not really it just keeps a gap open here, so it's not coming down to close off the window line. So you can actually see that there is also some hot air that will be able to flow through the bulge here to go over the car again. So that is also another point. And that will probably also make it a little bit more aero efficient, because if it would go down and then have to go up again, the air has to take a longer path to go over the car, and the degree of change that the airflow is going through is also larger. So that would also mean that it would slow down more, because it has to change more of direction, and slow moving air is a high air pressure zone. High air pressure zones means drag on the front of the car. So that is also another point. What you will also be able to see with the race version is that I will make some loops here that will help to get high air pressure zones evacuating from underneath the fender, which will also then increase downforce. Not so much increase downforce as decrease lift, but that is kind of the same thing, but you're not really generating downforce, you're just decreasing the lift that the front of the car is producing. So and also at the same time, because that high air pressure zone kind of builds up in this air pressure in this slot here, it is in some cases sometimes people also see that the drag actually gets less, but I don't know if that would be the case for this car. I have to test it and we'll see what happens. Then flowing through these are the doors, and I still need to generate some body gaps, but I will probably keep them at 3 millimeters all around. So I've cut 1.5 millimeters off of every end of every single body panel that is here. And yeah, that is basically it for that. Now, and then you also see a flat floor that then turns into the diffuser. And you can also already see that some of the A-arms underneath the suspension arms are kind of portraying through the diffuser, so I have to make a couple of holes for that. But that is not a problem for a diffuser this type. And maybe I will even change the suspension arm to be also very aero efficient, so that when there is no space for the diffuser, that the suspension arm is kind of replacing the shape of the diffuser, if it makes sense whatsoever. So that is also some sort of an aerodynamic element. Yeah, and then this rear diffuser is very enormous, as you can see, and I will probably also have to add a couple of slots to keep the air moving in the same direction and not create either flows that are detached from the surface, or at the same time just create turbulence in places you don't want it to be turbulent air pressure. So that is another thing that I'm doing with the car. And yeah, then also when the air is kind of exiting here, you can kind of see that the body panels are really shaped to kind of get air and evacuated out and generated down the side of the car. And then when it gets to the side, it kind of gets also flow through the side of the window, things of that nature, and then it will hit the rear deck lid, which is also just shaped to create a little bit of a kick up, so that the air is also coming off in an upward motion and not going downward. Because if you have air going in an upward motion off the car, then it also kind of helps to drag the air from the diffuser upward. And if you have those two elements working together, then it is just better for the overall aerodynamics, and it just creates less drag at the same time. And at the rear, as I said, the reason for this design where it is kind of ducked off inward, so you have this body panel flowing off right here, and then you would kind of expect for it to go smooth, but then there's a cutoff in this body panel right here that is very much going inward, and then the rest of the body is there. So the reason for doing it is pretty simple. You don't want the air to attach to the rear of the car, because if you have a flow that is coming off, let's say the flow is coming off of here, and then it's instead of it leaving this body surface, it is trying to come back towards the rear of the car. That will then create slower moving air pressure zones, and a slow moving air pressure zone is sorry, my bad, it won't create slow moving air pressure zones. It will just create turbulence and vortices on the back of the car, and these are suctions. So that will create a suction on the rear of the car, which will pull it back when it's trying to go forward. So that's also a form of drag. On the front of the car, you want to eliminate high air pressure zones, and on the back of the car, you want to eliminate low air pressure zones. So with this kind of cut off and then moving inward design on the rear, kind of helps with getting a clean separation from the airflow that just flows directly off of the car instead of trying to head back in. And every time you have a surface that is kind of vertical for air to kind of flow through, it will get stuck behind it. That will happen also with this car, but this is just a good way to minimize it and to get maximum performance and maximum efficiency out of it at the same time. So yeah, that is also another thing for the car. With the rear deck lid, this will also be a hatchback basically, so you will have here some space to put like I don't know, your groceries, things of that nature, just all day basic usability. And I'm also thinking about making a rear wing for the car that is pretty, for the road car, it will be just like a Lexus LFA. It will be very simple in design, nothing major on it. But for the race car, if you watched also the Project for Truthing videos, you kind of saw what kind of rear wing mechanism I came up with, and that was pretty advanced, and it wasn't really used on any car yet, as of yet. So, but for this, and that will also be in the shape of the rear deck lid, but for this car, I was just thinking about using this exact shape, because with this, with the rear fender kind of going over the wheel and then coming down for the rear deck lid, you also have some sort of an end plate already with this car. So this can, this whole shape can be used as an end plate for the rear wing. So you could kind of imagine that just this whole shape, but then with some sort of following the curvature line that is already here. So that whole shape with the curvature line will kind of be the rear wing for this car. And it will just come out in a very simple manner, as if it is a Lexus LFA or a Bugatti Veyron or whatever. So no major differences in like a weird cool design for this type of car. But for the next one, I will then kind of eliminate a lot of the baggage space for the rear wing mechanism to be really the way I want it to be. I just don't really want to say a lot about the rear wing in this video, because if you haven't really seen the previous one that I did, it is very hard to explain. And I also kind of want to keep it a secret as long as possible, because it hasn't been used in the automotive industry as of yet. So that is maybe also a reason for me that it's pretty stupid to put it on the internet. But at the same time, if somebody uses it, I would kind of feel proud a little bit that something that I designed ended up at a car. But and at the same time, I just don't really care at this point. So yeah. Let's see what else there is to go over with active aerodynamics. Because of this active rear wing, if you get more rear downforce, you also need a lot more from the front. And also with this car, the weight distribution will be probably a little bit more towards the front, because this big V12 that I designed is in the front of the car, even though the complete engine is behind the front wheel axle. But there's also gearbox in the rear, so the weight differential should be pretty good. But with a big front engine car, you also get a lot of more weight on the front of the car. And to compensate, you should have a little bit of more of a downforce also on the front of the car, because you want the downforce distribution to be the same front to rear as the weight distribution. So with this, the big ass diffuser, and also with the rear wing that is coming, also the front wing should be a little bit adjustable if you're getting more downforce on the rear, to keep the car balanced at all times, also during braking, during accelerating, during cornering, all of that. So also add some flaps in the actual front wing here that are just basically the same size, and if they're not moving, you shouldn't really be able to see that it is a separate component, other than of course the contours of the outlining and everything, because you will have to cut some out of it. But that is why it's good to do these videos and to talk out loud. Because sometimes when you hear yourself talk, you think of things that you could do to the car. Koenigsegg, for their front splitter, they have active elements that are basically flexible. So there is like a piston behind a cutout, but it's not completely cut out. It is just in a U shape of cutout, and then a piston behind it that is kind of pushing it out, and then it flexes along. I could do that. So that is to, I don't know, that should be possible. I can't really make that in SolidWorks. I can, but it is difficult. And also at the same time, it is also not as strong as it would be with this solution. I'll think about that, but that is kind of a cool moment for me to just give a reason to do these videos, I guess. Anything else that I should mention aerodynamically, design wise? Oh yeah, the headlights and also the taillights as well. They are completely air can just completely flow through them freely. So as you can see, the sculpture on these is pretty amazing, if I may say so myself, but I really like the way that these came out. And the air can just flow through them, and I will probably put a little bit of a radiator behind this, and then that will go to the brake duct. And the reason why I want a radiator behind it is because sometimes it is better to get hot air to the braking system instead of cold air, because you want your brakes to stay at some type of temperature. So that is also a very good reason to have a radiator in front of a braking duct. So that is on the front of the car. And what would that radiator serve? That is a little bit of a different question. I don't know yet, to be honest with you. Just have a radiator for no reason. That would add weight, would be stupid, so then I would just don't have a radiator. But in the case of the rear, you can also see that they're completely air flowing through. And even a little bit, you know, there it's just the same as the front of the car. But in this case, that will be for the air, let's see, differential cooler, gearbox cooler. So that is on the front of the car. But also those will only be activated when you're driving the car hard, because in regular driving you don't really need a lot of cooling for that. So I wanted to make a brake duct that is coming up only when the rear wing is going up. So that is something that would be pretty cool. But then the air would also be able to flow directly out of the rear light here, and that would also add for some cool aerodynamic effects and things of that nature. So that would be cool as well. So I think that was it for the car. Thanks for watching. Please leave a like or subscribe to this YouTube channel. My name is Veldboom, and yeah, again, please follow me also on all forms of social media, SVA Design, basically on everything. And thanks for watching. Please leave a like or subscribe to this YouTube channel. Veldboom, as I said. I'm out.